Hello and welcome to Guarida podcast. This is episode 6 and this is the English version. Today we're going to talk about compressors and there's a dedicated video of this in Spanish. So si hablas español, pues ve el episodio pasado. Es lo mismo, pero en español. Okay, let's go back to English. I think I will never be tired of saying that in I don't know. I like doing it in English and Spanish. I think even my personality kind of changes. I don't know why. And that's like a psychological thing. But anyway, this is not a psychological podcast. This is a music production podcast. So let's talk about compressors. First of all, what is a compressor? What is a compressor? A compressor is a processor that lets you reduce the dynamic range of a signal. So what exactly is dynamic range? Well, if you can see here, if you're watching this in video format, this point here is where I'm not talking, right? Because there's no signal here, there's no drawing here. And this here is the highest point of the signal. So it's the loudest point, right? So I'm not talking here. And then this is the loudest point of the signal. Nada quiero saber esa monedita. So the dynamic range is basically the range of amplitude between 0, like non-volume, non-signal, to the highest and loudest point of the signal. So that is dynamic range. So it reduces the dynamic range. Why would it reduce the dynamic range? Why do you want your dynamic range to be affected? It's because, for example, when you're on Spotify or on Apple Music, you don't, like if Adele is whispering, or for example, Billie Eilish. If Billie Eilish is whispering, you're not going to turn up your volume to listen to her. And then if she's shouting, you're not going to turn down your volume. You want just the experience of listening to a Billie Eilish song to be just normal, right? That's the case in every single song that is out. You need the song to be compressed in order for you to enjoy it and not turn up and down your volume while you're hearing it, right? Some of like amateur songs have that problem because they're amateur songs. But in professional songs, you'll hear every word, every detail, every vocal, every guitar, everything perfectly because they're professionals, and that's how commercial music should sound like. So let's jump in here into compressors. So that's basically a compressor. And what does it do? It reduces the dynamic range of your signal. So let's jump in here let's put it here on default, everything on default. Let's go here to my R compressor. It's from the company Waves, which is my favorite one. I have the whole Waves suite of, I think it's the gold one or the platinum one. I don't know. I bought it like 2 years ago, and to this day I use it because it's amazing. It has everything you can imagine, and I don't even run out of ideas because it's incredible. But there's never enough plugins. So we music producers, we love plugins and we love to use new gear and new stuff, even though we don't even need it. So yeah. Okay, we're going to take a listen here to the clean signal. This is my clean signal out of the recording. It's just a flex pitch or melodined or auto-tuned or whatever, but it doesn't have any process. It doesn't have EQ and it doesn't have compressor. And it's a song called Oro, or Gold in English. And it's from my last album, Headspace, and it's available on Spotify and on Apple Music. So let's take a listen. This is no effects, no process, no anything. Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue, que yo ya no te... Okay, so you can hear that it has loudest points and lower points, right? So it's a dynamic thing because we as human beings are dynamic. We shout and we whisper and everything. So I just recorded this, and that's the way I recorded. I don't know what to say. So that's has dynamic range. It's not compressed. So let's start compressing, and I will start to address every single parameter here. So first we have the threshold, which is, I'm sorry about my English, which is the most important thing because it's when it will start to compress. So it's the point where it will start to compress. You can see here the signal here jumping. So you want your threshold to be all of my audio recordings are almost between like -9 and -6, so about here. So my compressors are always almost like between -10 and -15. Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber. So everything that passes -15, because you remember the loudest point in music production here in the visualizer in decibels is 0. So 0 decibels is the loudest point, and -40, -60, -infinity. Obviously, it's the lowest and quietest point. So que yo ya no te quiero ver. Everything louder than -15, it will get compressed because I set my threshold at -50. Okay, correct, easy, simple. Then you have the attack and the release. So the attack is when it will start compressing. This is at which point it will start compressing, but the attack is how fast will it start compressing. So this is measured in milliseconds. So this is 16 milliseconds, which is super fast anyway. You won't notice, of course, but -16. So I tend to put it like at -20 something. I don't know why I added the minus. I'm used to saying -15, -10. So 22 milliseconds is my attack. And your release, you should always put your release. I think it's for obvious reasons. Your release should be obviously bigger than your attack, because if you put your attack at 50 and then you release at 30, it won't even going to start compressing because your attack is set to 50 and your release is already like released. So it doesn't make sense. If the attack should be faster than the release for obvious reasons. I don't know. I can't verbalize this, but it's obvious, and just don't do it. So the release should be higher than the attack. That's the whole point. That's the point of what I'm trying to make a point here. Okay. So like on 122 milliseconds, then the ratio. So if I press play, it's not compressing, it's not doing anything, because here comes the ratio. The ratio is, I think, also the most important thing and my favorite to play with in a compressor. That is how much will it compress. So the ratio is 1:1, so it's not compressing anything. So if I go to 3, let's say 3, right? So if I go 3:1, here in this particular compressor, it doesn't have the little dots, but this is, so like 3:1. So this is how you should see it in other compressors, but you get used to it and you don't need to see this. but it is 3 to 1. So basically what it's saying is that everything that crosses minus 15, like louder than minus 15, it will start compressing with a speed of 22 milliseconds, and it will compress with a ratio of 3 to 1. So that means that for every 3 decibels that exceed minus 15 decibels, for every 3 decibels higher, you will reduce it to 1. So every 3 decibels they surpass minus 15. Every 3 decibels that get higher than minus 15, you will get 1, just 1. So if you put, so for example, like if there are 6 decibels here louder than minus 15, you will hear just 2 decibels louder than minus 15, because obviously if it's 3 to 1, then you have then you have 6 to 2, because every 6 decibels you will get 2 decibels. So it's basic math, you know? Okay. So you will hear the difference.
Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
Okay, so it sounds a little bit quieter than what it sounded like. So why is that? Because obviously you're reducing a lot of decibels, because there's a lot of the signal is passing minus 15. So you're obviously reducing a big amount of decibels. So we have a reduction here of minus 6. So like minus 4 in average. So here comes the gain. That's the part when the gain steps up. And the gain is basically you're trying to make up the gain that you reduced in the first place. So if I reduced between minus 3 and minus 6, so I will put the gain 5 to 5 decibels up. So that means that if I reduced minus 6 decibels, it sounds lower, but then I'm making the gain up to 5, so it will sound at the same volume that I recorded it.
Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
So I think it sounds a lot better. So let me show you the differences. Here is with no process, no compressor. That's the original signal.
Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
And here is the compressed signal.
Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
So obviously, like the word says, it's more compressed. That means that it's more compact and more squished into a thing, right? So it will sound much better, because the quietest points in the signal are going to sound almost at the same amplitude, so at the same volume, than the loudest parts. So everything will be intelligible, I think is the word, or everything will be listenable. I don't know if these words exist, but I'm not a native English speaker, so I don't care. You get it. So everything will be intelligible and listenable, because you don't need to, every time I'm whispering, you don't need to turn up the volume. And every time I'm shouting, you don't need to turn down the volume, because it's compressed and it's perfect and it sounds excellent, and you'll hear perfect in every device, monitors, headphones, speakers, whatever.
Que yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
Awesome. So let's do a quick just sample with the guitar. I compressed this guitar earlier, so this is without the compressor. You can see that this point, when you hit these points, you can see it in the waveform which points are higher in amplitude, in volume. So this will sound just quiet, and this is going to be so strong. That sounds super loud. You can see the clear, well, here, the clear difference that is doing, right? So with the compressed signal, I'm getting rid also of the ratio is going to be 3:1. So for every 3 decibels that exceed the threshold, they're going to reduce it to 1 decibel. So for every 3, it's going to be 1. So it will sound a lot more compact, and you won't hear that big of a difference from this point to, let's say, like this one. Everything sounds almost at the same volume. Let's do it again without the compressor. Here is without the compressor. And with the compressor. So yeah, that's the way it is. And let's hear the whole song here compressed, this little part. Let's hear it without the compressor. This is the sound of just non-compressed tracks.
Yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
Okay, so it sounds not in their place. It sounds a little bit just, I don't know, just raw and like amateur. But then if I compress everything, obviously it's not equalized. It doesn't have a bunch of effects, but the compressor should work. So it will sound like this.
Yo ya no te quiero ver, de ti nada quiero saber, esa monedita de oro, pues que crees que ya se te fue.
So it's a huge difference. I advise you to listen to this podcast with headphones or with monitors or speakers, or like if you listen with a shitty like iPhone or whatever cell phone you have speaker, probably you won't hear a huge difference. So even the Apple earbuds or earbuds, whatever, so you can hear listen this to the difference that a compressor makes in a signal. Okay, so I covered almost every point. So let's go to, well, I like the colors here. Let's go. I'm going to show you what compressors do I own, what compressors do I use, do I have, do I recommend. So this is the first one, the one that you saw all of the episode. That is the R compressor. It's from the company Waves, and it's just a simple. It has just 5-6 parameters. Like, it's just easy. Actually, it has just 6 parameters because this is just coloration. So this acts as 1. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's super simple. I love it. I like it. Then you have the H comp of Waves also, Waves hybrid line. This is a more complicated one. You have the analog, so this lets you add a coloration to the sound, a different type of color to the compressor. Then you have the dry and wet signal, so it's how wet or how dry your compressed signal. How do you want your output? And finally, the release, you can sync it to your BPM. So it's actually releasing the how you compress the signal, um, like synchronized with your tempo. So that's super important. And then you have here the punch that is similar to the attack, but it's like the transient. I like that. This one is also super good. The Neutron 2 compressor, because it's a multi-band compressor, so you can choose which band you want to compress. So, for example, if you want super compressed with a 6.1 to 1 ratio at minus 20 dB and from 400 hertz below. I mean, if you want the low band to be super compressed and then the mid band to be not compressed at all, and then the high band to be super compressed, you can choose to do that, and you have 3 bands, and it's great. It's amazing what you can do here. You have vintage mode, so you can have a different, you visualize in a more vintage way, like the VU, the voltage units and everything. It's awesome. Then you have the Pro C, which is the fab filter one. I love this one also. You can hear also the coloration. You can sidechain. It's pretty. I like how it looks. And you have the Solid Dynamics, which is the one from Complete, I think, or it's just from Native Instruments. I don't like it as much, but it's simple, and it has also a gate and an expander built in. That it's so related to a compressor, but we'll cover it in another episode. But I mean, it looks clean. It looks elegant. I like it. It sounds whatever. It has like a limit of minus 20 dB, so it's like kind of limited. Then you have the C1 compressor, also from Waves. It's the like normal compressor, the standard compressor from Waves. C1 compressor, it's almost the same as the other one. Makeup gain, threshold, ratio, attack, release, visualizer. Here with the threshold, you can visualize the signal, output, have the same stuff. It's I like it, but I use it like just in some instruments. I don't use it on vocals. And finally, we have the most boring one that I don't like, but I used a lot in my first mixes and my first productions when I was in middle school. And it is just the stock Logic compressor. You have the different types of compressor, so it's like a premium, platinum, digital. What is this? Studio VCA, Studio FET, classic, vintage, opto, and you have even the design changes, auto gain, it's distortion. It has some features, but I don't really use it. If you're a pro, I just don't see why you would use this instead of the ones that you bought. But if you're a beginner, it's super interesting to just browse and see what every knob does. I like it. And those are my favorite plugins, and the ones that I use in the category of compressors. Those are the ones that I use. And I think that's it. I covered everything. This was the episode 6 of Guarida podcast. New episodes coming one every week at least. So we're building a guide to music production. And you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram, which is where I upload the clips. So if you don't have time to listen to this, you can just watch the clips on my TikTok or my Instagram. And if you want to hear the whole thing and to listen to the whole thing, it's available on Spotify and in every podcast platform. Audio format and video format is available here on YouTube. And finally, I also live stream on Twitch, Tico Acosta MX. So it's Mexico, Tico Acosta MX. And I live stream like once a week. I also do some game stuff, but yeah, we're focusing here on the music side. And that's it. That was it. I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you on the next one. See you.